while it's important to understand what House Bill 2700 does in the legal and technical parlance, I want to take a second this morning to talk about why this bill is so important to me. Colleagues, this bill is not about big corporations or trial lawyers. This is about regular people, about Oregonians. It's about making sure that our justice system actually works, that every Oregonian has equal protection under the law, and they can turn to the Oregon justice system to seek redress and to stand up when they've been ripped off, endangered, or injured. That's why I think this bill should pass this morning. The current state of Oregon law, my good colleague from Beaverton spoke briefly about this. The defendant gets to keep money owed to victims in a class action lawsuit if they can't be found. So the defendant doesn't have to pay the full amount of damages. And in class action lawsuits, colleagues, often the awards are small to individual class members. Not always, but often. And it can be hard to find the people who are in the class. People move, they change their names. Some of these victims are never found. The court tries diligently, can't find them. So inevitably, in these cases, there's money left behind. And as my colleague mentioned, in the vast majority of the states, the defendant doesn't get to just keep that money. And in current law in Oregon right now, the defendant must keep that money. That's the difference. And House Bill 2700 fixes what I think is a pretty egregious practice. In fact, I'm outraged that defendants who injure Oregonians must keep damages. So you may have heard many arguments last session, earlier this week, about what this bill does and doesn't do. So I want to quickly run through some of those arguments. House Bill 2700 does not change the way class actions are handled by the courts in Oregon. It does not change. Judges continue to have control over how a class is certified and whether or not that's appropriate. Sometimes it's not appropriate to certify a class. The judge still has that control. They manage the notice provision. They make sure that everybody in the class knows what their rights are, and if they choose to, opt out. Judges continue to take steps to protect the members of the class and make sure that the representatives of the class are putting the interest of the full class ahead of their own. Judges continue to control attorney's fees to make sure that any amount awarded meets the existing standard of a reasonable fee. This bill does not increase or decrease the size of a class in Oregon. It does not increase or decrease the size of the verdict against a defendant or the amount of fees awarded to any of the attorneys. This bill does not require a cent from the general fund, and I think, in fact, it will ultimately save us money by making our courts more efficient and reducing the general fund and fee support for legal aid.